I'm Richard Gearhart, founder of Gearhart Law and an intellectual property attorney specializing in patents, trademarks, and copyrights.
And I'm Elizabeth Gearhart, not an attorney, but I do marketing for Gearhart Law and I have my own startup.
Welcome, everybody, to Passage to Profit, the road to entrepreneurship, where we talk about inventors, entrepreneurism, and the intellectual property that helps them flourish. Tonight, we have a very special guest, Jason Azevedo, who is going to be talking to us about American manufacturing, among other topics. I think it's very timely now, considering all the supply chain issues.
Yes. And then we have two wonderful presenters, Brittany Driscoll with Squeeze Massage. She makes it so easy to get a massage. There's really no excuse anymore. So you want to see what she has. And then Becca Gardner with Naked Lady. And it has to do with drinks, but I'm not going to say anymore.
We want to definitely hear about naked ladies. You knew that was coming, right? You had to know that was coming. But before we get to our naked ladies and our other distinguished guests, we are going to IP in the news. So what is the IP in the news tonight?
Well, can you just trademark any old word, like even the word the?
Yeah, you can, as a matter of fact.
How is that even possible?
Well, first of all, you have to be Ohio State, because Ohio
Okay.
State trademarked the word the, and they are notorious, by the way, for trademarking really kind of simple, stupid stuff. They were in IP in the news a while ago for trademarking the letter O. And it looks like they already trademarked now the letter the. So gradually they're working through the whole English language, Webster's dictionary, and they're going to get every word they possibly can.
Does that mean nobody can ever use the word the in a sentence, or written or spoken again?
You might think so, but the fact is you can't. Trademarks are limited to special classifications. And so they only got the word the for use on apparel, sportswear, caps, those kinds of things. So it's a kind of a narrow usage range, I guess, for lack of a better word. But in fact, yeah, they can use it for, T-shirts or whatever stuff they want.
Well, I find that utterly ridiculous. So anyway,
well, that is the trademark
opinion.
system, but there's, it's not only just Ohio State. There was another company that also tried to trademark the word the, and it was Marc Jacobs, and they had a little dispute going at the trademark offices over who could trademark the word the, and I guess they managed to work it out. So now they can both use the word the as a trademark.
Just on clothing.
I don't know what the exact nature of the deal was, but so Ohio State's not the only one.
Okay, well, I think it's time for Richard's Roundtable.
I think it is. So Jason, welcome to the show. We really we're looking forward to hearing from you. Tell us though, what are your thoughts on this whole trademarking the word the?
I got to stand on it's business side, is that there's a point at which trademark something that's special to you or special to your brand. When you start getting into first words that you've learned as a kid, it's starting to get a little bit far in one direction.
You mean sort of off the deep end. Well, I kind of wonder if you say like the end on a t-shirt, you're using the word the there. Does that mean that they get to stop you from doing that?
I just don't even see how they can enforce that. There's so many t-shirts with slogans and names on them.
Yeah, well, that it would be difficult. Thanks, Jason. Brittany, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I agree. I don't think they'll really be able to enforce it too much, but I personally think it's a lot of fun. I'm a big brand person, and I always love the, player lineup introductions in the NFL and the pride that the players have coming from the Ohio State University. So I'm for it. I think it's fun.
Okay. Well, right. I mean, it's only a trademark, right? And they're not going to be able to stop people from saying the word the. So, why not go with it? Kenya, what are your thoughts?
I find it interesting because you said they're trademarking it in the apparel like sector, right? So we think it's like niche, but like think of all the apparel companies that are out there or that could be up and coming who may want to use the word the in like a title or a catchphrase or a slogan. Like I think it's an interesting way to monopolize the market from a brand perspective, because if you can limit the use of the, that's like, it's a pretty common word. Like you could use it in anything, right? But I think if you prohibit your competition from being able to use it, it could make some things a little sticky for other brands that are out there in the apparel space.
Yeah, I agree. I do think that they're going to have a hard time stopping people from using it in a phrase. That's going to be difficult to enforce. And if you want to have a brand called The, why not? I mean, I kind of think it's a stupid brand myself, but maybe some people think it's cool.
So. Well, let's hear what Becca thinks.
Yeah.
I'm just really impressed because I went through the process of trademarking Naked Lady, and that was incredibly difficult. And it's an unusual name. But, you know, I encountered challenges with some major corporations because it was similar to Naked, NAKED. And so I would just be curious what went on behind the scenes to get to the point where they actually were awarded that.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't read through the whole file, but I'm sure it took a while for sure.
Well,
And
well, I want to trademark a couple of words and have so people can't use them again. The first one is
and how about
And the second is I'm going to trademark those and forbid anybody from using them.
It might help everyone.
Actually, I think she makes a good point, right? I certainly would help me. So thank you for that. So, it's time for our guest. Welcome to the show, Jason Azevedo. And you're the founder. You're the founder of Manufacturing Revitalization Corporation. Also, a couple of other companies, Advocate and Mosaic. And so you have a specialty in the world of manufacturing, which is, of course, a very hot button issue right now. So tell us about yourself and tell us about the manufacturing landscape.
Yeah, so I've got a background in building manufacturing plants and taking legacy US manufacturing companies and bringing them into what is going to be the modern era. And really taking that difference between where everybody's stigma is with a factory right now of this kind of Charles Dickens, dirt floor, grease flying everywhere, to what we're seeing like with a Tesla or something like that, that has these beautiful white floors and safety mechanisms among all the machines. So the landscape's drastically changing. And if you take even into IP protection right now, all of our plants are badged. So if you're walking into them, you can't get into anything because everything's top secret. And it's one of the beauties about doing business in the US is you get a lot more protections on when you're having your stuff manufactured.
That's really an interesting point. And a lot of companies keep those as trade secrets. Lots of times they'll patent certain aspects of it. I remember when I was in high school, I worked in a factory. It was we made large batteries for industrial equipment. And it was a terrible place to work. I mean, there were all sorts of chemicals around. There were fumes. There was dirt and grease everywhere. And now when I see with pictures of the manufacturing plants, I'm like, wow, they have really cleaned things up, which I think is great for the people who are working in those environments.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting too. So let me just clarify. You take a building that may be, okay, so we live in New Jersey. If you take the train in from New York, you see this old Westinghouse building that's got like broken out windows. It's horrible. And that's what people think of New Jersey, which is not what it's like where we live. It's nice and real. So is that like the kind of thing you would take a building like that and you would refurbish it and make it into a modern day manufacturing facility?
We're doing it more with a company. So we're going into companies that already exist. Usually they're second, third generation companies that the owner is looking for an exit plan, but the legacy of his company and the local community is significantly more important than just the business. So we'll go find these companies that usually haven't innovated too much in the last 10 years. They're profitable, they're healthy, they're good, but we're able to come in and just push them to that next level and really get them to look like that new style Tesla plant that's got all these processes, all these safety mechanisms, clean them up, make them pretty, make the business run better. And then also marry on top what modern products are like. Because a lot of these plants were built with products that were 20 years ago. And if you look at a product from 20 years ago and a product from today, they're drastically different, and really getting them to that next level to be able to make those products.
So for a modern plant, when I think of a modern plant, I think of a plant with a lot of automation, a lot of robots, and maybe AI. You know, they have these arms that have lasers on them, or welders. Is automation now a pretty big deal when you're upgrading the plants?
Automation is a very large deal when we go into these plants, but really it starts at the human level and working on process. You can buy all the coolest robots in the world and every cool machine. And believe me, I love to buy robots and machines, and they're fun toys for us. But if you don't start at the human level and really work on what's the process, how do we get things through the building? How do we get people to accept that automation is never here to take your job? It's just here to make your job better.
So is that really true though? I mean, honestly, how do you justify a statement like that? Because you have mechanical things doing jobs that humans used to do.
So take a razor. 20 years ago, you'd have your razor and you'd keep that for 6 months. Now speed up to now with like a Harry's or something like that, that's dropping off for a week to you. So we're using now 8 times as many products, but we have the exact same size workforce to create it. So if you do not add automation, you frankly just can't keep up to current consumption levels. So it is about that. The other part of it too is I focus on American manufacturing. Adding in automation into an American plant brings in more jobs because it allows you to compete labor to labor with anywhere else in the world. So it's a fallacy that automation takes jobs. It actually is what is making jobs. And that's frankly why in the last 10 years, automation's drastically increased. And suddenly you're starting to see a lot of manufacturing jobs come back to the US. It gives us a competitive advantage against anybody else.
Well, I think that makes sense. I remember using instrumentation in the chemical industry, and every other day there would be a problem that I had to fix. And so even though it was all automated to run, it could not run without human intervention. So I totally understand where you're coming from. So what kind of companies, obviously you're working with companies that manufacture product that consumers buy. Can you talk about any examples of how you did this and like who your clients would be if you are looking for new business now?
Yeah, so we manufacture basically everything you can think of. So I'll give an example. We bought a company years ago when I was still doing this before the private equity firm. I'm just doing it with private assets. We make every control panel for every nuclear reactor on General Electric reactors worldwide. So it just very complex, high precision. They have to be flawless products. In that exact same plant, we were making children's toys. So we're making these little slot car, race car things. So we like to find this balance of products that are very much on the industrial side and then very much on the consumer side. And then we layer our companies to make them make sense with each other. So we'll own a packaging company, and then we'll own a company making the toy, and then we'll own a company that's making. Right now, we've got one client that makes a big lighting product. So we're doing the packaging for the product, we're doing the actual product itself, and then we're doing all the fulfillment for them too. So we kind of take them soup to nuts through everything.
Wow. So if I came to you and I wanted to sell, like I came to you and I had the prototype, maybe I had the patent on it, and I was starting production on, let's say, I don't know, a new pan for cooking or something. Now you say you do manufacturing. Could you take that prototype and help me get the pan into the hands of the consumer with what you do?
Most certainly. And we actually will even oftentimes start pre-prototypes. So that lighting product, it actually started as a napkin sketch that got into our engineering's hands. Our engineering designed it. went through a couple prototype rounds, got it back to the client. They liked it, started using it. Now they've launched it, and they're probably on the 4th or 5th iteration. They are fully patent protected. We were the ones who actually developed the initial drawings to put forward for their patent. So one of the big things as manufacturing comes back in a massive wave to the US, when products left the US 30 years ago, they were simple. You could be a sheet metal guy, and I made sheet metal parts. Products nowadays will have injection molding and sheet metal and electronics, and they're these complex pieces. So one of our goals is to be able to handle as much of that for our clients as possible, because we know that people don't want to have to build their own supply chain trying to move products around the US like crazy.
Well, what you just described is a huge advantage, because a lot of people who are in the entrepreneurial space now, and they're having products designed and made overseas, like, for example, China, Vietnam, in addition to all the marketing and the finance issues, they have to deal with communication issues, time differences, quality issues are huge. And then, as you mentioned, IP protection issues. And if you can do the same type of thing in the US economically, that's going to be a huge, huge improvement for the entrepreneurial space, because that just takes away so many hurdles. I think what you're doing is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, we have a client, and he had his product on the docks in Jersey in containers and could not get it to his warehouse and he fought and kicked and screamed, and finally he did get it to his warehouse, but the frustration level was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And you're at the mercy of all of these factors outside your control, outside of your control. And if you want to go visit the plant, it's in China. So how often?
Yeah, well, and if you wanted to in the last 2 years, you weren't allowed to.
You couldn't, right?
So yeah, I mean, I think if you can get stuff made in America and you can do it for a reasonable price, a price that people will pay. I mean, it doesn't even have to be a reasonable price if you can sell it and people will pay that much for it. Like, I know there's a shoe line that I look at on Zappos that's made in America that's twice as much as other shoes, but they're really great quality, so I do buy them. And I think there are a lot of people like that.
Well, and the stigma of it's automatically more expensive in the US is just not, it's simply not true anymore. This is very old mentality. The US is catching up with, hey, we're getting that there's certain things that you can do, you can't do in the US cheaper yet. If you want to hand paint little mini figurines and do with all those little man hours, yeah, okay, that's still not ready to be in the US. But if you look at, like, let's say Foxconn, the premier Chinese contract manufacturer, they just teamed up with Fiskars that they're going to be building EV parts in Ohio. So that people have already started to run the numbers and go, actually, this makes sense. It's just making sure it makes sense where. So the fallacy of, oh, it's more expensive in the US, but it's worth paying for it, it's actually not true anymore. Now, a lot of brands will use the made in the US to charge more because it's a great marketing line, but it's not automatically true. And that is something that we have to work on pretty consistently, of showing people you're going to be able to do it for cheaper in the US in a lot of cases.
Wow.
And so we have just a few seconds here before our break, but I'm really curious about, what does made in the US mean? Does that mean it's assembled in the US? Does that mean every single part is made in the US? Because now we have all these different parts. So in a minute or less, can you describe what made in the USA means?
To truly say made in the USA, the significant portion of cost and effort must be done in the United States. It is virtually impossible for it to be 100% made from anywhere now, because if you go back to minerals that created the plastic, you just can't get that far back. But the significant effort and cost must be in the US, or you can go with assembled in the United States, and that way you can use global components, but it was put together here, which is what a lot of car companies do.
Great. We'll be back with more Passage to Profit right after this commercial break. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart on Passage to Profit, and you're listening to our special guest, Jason Azevedo. And we'll be right back after this.
Well, welcome back, listeners. You are listening to Passage to Profit, Road to Entrepreneurship with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart, and our special guest today, Jason Azevedo, bringing manufacturing back to the U.S. and making products for less than you would think. And Kenya Gipson, our media maven, is here, and she has a question for Jason.
Yeah, so Jason, obviously, we're having some serious supply chain issues and inflation continues to go on and on. How are you working with your current partners to kind of offset some of the impact of that?
So one of the biggest things right now is constant communication lines with everybody. Is the stuff is changing by the hour, not by the week. So we are constantly in communication with any supplier. Hey, what's this looking like? Where's pricing going? How do we keep that balance? Then also to our clients going, hey, I highly recommend you get an order in the next 6 days because I know about this increase that's coming. So really making sure you keep those communication strings open. The other side of it is relationships are everything right now. If you've had a good relationship with people and vendors and suppliers for the last 15 years, make sure you keep on working with them, because we're starting it's starting to show very heavily that those relationships are what's keeping people moving forward.
Well, that is so true. You know, I was trying to get this medicine for my cats, this flea medicine, Revolution Plus, and they make the medicine in the US, but the little plastic piece they need for the tube is made in China. And so you couldn't get it for a while, but then Chewy.com, which this isn't really an ad for Chewy, because of that relationship, was able to get it before my vet practice was. So I was able to get it through Chewy. So, and I think that's because, and they said, the vet said, well, because they buy so much, they have the relationships with the suppliers that nobody else has.
Yeah,
that's really
it's incredibly important right now. And the ability to pick up a phone and call somebody that you've worked with for 10 years and go, hey, I really need this little plastic part. Can you put me somewhere closer to the front of the list?
Yeah. So if somebody comes to work with you, if they come with that napkin sketch, what happens? What's the first thing you tell them? And who do you take as a client and not take as a client?
It varies, especially depending on what company of ours that you're looking to work with. The most important part is once we get the napkin sketch, what is the point of this product? A lot of people forget to communicate the problem that they're trying to solve to the engineer. So the engineer will just start putting this image into graphics, but it doesn't truly understand the plight that caused the design of this product. So we truly try to get into what is it that you're trying to do with this, so that when we start looking at it, we know, okay, well, it's actually unimportant that it has this shape up here, but this shape here is incredibly important. So that allows us to design for manufacturing.
That's great. So if an entrepreneur, if an entrepreneur has a product that they want to make, what are some of the pitfalls that the entrepreneurs can make when it comes to manufacturing? What things would you warn against?
First thing is understand you're going to fail. Manufacturing is not a smooth process. You do have to go through iterations to get it to function correctly and to be stable. So a lot of people think I'm going to go in and it's kind of like going to the store and I'm going to buy a product and I'm going to bring it home and it's going to be exactly what I was looking for. You have to check that emotion aside, because it is going to take iterations and working together, and your ability to communicate what the point of this product is will be the life or death of it. So if you walk in and you've got this great picture in your head, but haven't done the work to write out how another person can understand it, it becomes very, very difficult. I'll give an example. That lighting product we use, that we make, is made to be used in the eyelash industry. Well, you walk into a manufacturing plant, and frankly, it's usually going to be, and especially within the engineering rooms, it's usually a significantly male-dominated room. If you can't explain what eyelash extensions are to that room, they're at a deficit to help you get the product that you're looking for. So the biggest first pitfall is not being able to clearly communicate what you're trying to achieve. Once you're past that, make sure you've got a manufacturer that you have a good relationship with, that you can go grab a beer with, because you will be in the trenches together for most likely years of developing the product, launching the product, stabilizing it, all those iterations. And there will be days that you just need to go grab a beer together so that you can kind of get through the next hurdle.
Kenya, do you have another question?
Well, I was just going to say, like, what tips would you give to, other business or other industries to kind of just navigate these times? I feel like a lot of business owners right now feel like things are very uncertain. And I just wanted to see what advice you would recommend.
So I'll give an anecdote to that one. I started my first company in February of 2007. Right as we got off the ground, here comes the late 2007 and early 2008 crash. And I remember listening to everyone around me going, don't start a business, don't do this. And someone messed up and told me, you're going to lose everything you have. So I took a step back, and I was 15 years old starting a manufacturing company. I didn't have anything. So it suddenly clicked that in times like this, make sure that the problems that you're feeling and taking are your own and not somebody else's that are, the supply chain's killing me. Well, is it, or are you just missing a little plastic thing? Like, it really, is it the whole supply chain, or is it a little plastic part? So it just really make sure that your problems are your own problems, and that it's not these other people broadcasting them on you, and you start getting weighed down by what every news outlet or everything else is talking about, supply chain issues or inflation. Make sure it actually applies to you.
That's a really good point. I know we always tell this story, but somebody told Richard when he started Gearhart Law, oh, don't get a website, don't advertise on the internet. And he ignored them.
That was back in 2005 when law firms didn't really have websites back in that day.
And yeah, so
speaking of law and websites, I find that I work with a surprising number of clients who don't have contracts with their supplier. Do you recommend contracts or not? Do you think they're a waste of time?
It depends what you're in. If you're in an ultra commoditized, if what you're buying from somebody is ultra commoditized, think a piece of cardboard or a widget. And if you can lock in the pricing at what you consider a good rate that you figure is going to be great, get that in a contract. Southwest Airlines became what they are because they had locked in fuel prices. So that was a really good position to have a contract in. The flip side of that is, if you're in something that's super specialty and you may need a supplier that you can swap out easily, because what if they're not performing or something like that? Well, that's probably not a good place to have a contract. So it's point by point. And like with most things in business, you can't just cast the same shadow over everything. You really have to think, does it make sense in this space for me?
And that's very helpful. I would look at it. I would make sure whatever contract we have with the vendor, it would always be something you can get out of if you need to, because just for the reason that you mentioned, they may fall behind, they may not have the capacity, whatever it is. And then you go to the further issue of actually trying to enforce a contract in China, which would be like a tremendous waste of time and money in many circumstances. But on the other hand, you may be able to enforce it in the US, and there may be times when that's handy. But I've seen it both ways, and I appreciate your opinion on that.
what has been your most interesting project to date? Can you talk about that and why that was so interesting for you?
In a positive way, a positive project.
I said interesting.
So years ago, we've done a lot of really interesting, weird things. but there was one specifically that was kind of a pride point for us. There was this is 2012-ish. There was a toy company that we have figured out can produce their toy cheaper in the US than they can in China. And we were able to convince them of this. And I was a cog in the chain on this one. We were doing about 70% of the manufacturing for it. And it took us about a year and a half to develop this in the US, got it all together. They were these like slot cars, but they were reading off of barcodes that were hidden inside of ink. Well, what ends up happening is because we were developing this for a year and a half, I happen to own more slot car track than any person in the world. So, and I happen to be in a 70,000 square foot building for that project. So one could imagine what I did very quickly. So
I was a big slot car guy when I was a kid too, so.
Oh, so you had a lot of
Aurora
fun.
was the thing. Oh yeah, those were great. So
oh yeah, we had a lot of fun.
How many feet of track did you have? Did you go the whole 70 feet?
70,000.
Oh yeah, I think
cars.
at one point I think I had on hand probably 50 miles of this stuff. So it was one of those programs that you're just like, well, I mean, they're all prototype pieces that are going to go to the trash. Might as well do something with them.
I would have loved to see that. Too bad you weren't on YouTube at that point.
Yeah.
So that sounds great. So we are coming to the end of our segment here, and thank you for all the information. It's really great. It's always a pleasure to have somebody who has expertise, Jason, on the manufacturing side of things, because there's a lot of experts in marketing and sales and all these other things, but it's not very often that we get to hear from somebody who's really got it from the manufacturing perspective.
So what is your website?
My website is MRCA.net.
So that is for Manufacturing Revitalization Corporation of America.net, right?
Correct.
That's
we figured it'd be easier to bring it down to 4 letters.
I think so. I could never type all that out without making a typo.
You can hardly fit that on a business card, right? Anyway, we'll be right back with more Passage to Profit right after this. Welcome back, everybody, to Passage to Profit. Really just an amazing discussion with Jason Azevedo, and who is the founder of the Manufacturing Revitalization Corporation of America, otherwise known as the MRCA. He had some really fantastic tips and information about manufacturing. I highly recommend, if you didn't hear the whole interview, you go check out our podcast, which will be available tomorrow, and you can get it wherever your podcasts are found. So it's time to move on to Power Move, and spearheading Power Move is Kenya Gipson. Kenya, great to see you. Who's our Power Move today?
Likewise, thanks for having me. So excited about Power Move today. It's a story that really touched my heart. We're going to be talking about a gentleman who was on the Food Network's Chopped. He's a celebrity chef called Chef Sammy Davis, and his opportunity to create additional opportunities in cooking for kids through a culinary program for at-risk youth. So the Richmond Culinary Opportunity and Other Keystone Skills, it's called Cooks. It's a pilot program that he's created. It's a free 8-week program designed to spark culinary interest in the city's youth. And he's going to be responsible for leading this program. And why it's a power move is he was born to a teenage heroin addict, and he lost his father to murder. So he didn't have a very good start. And he found passion in the kitchen, and cooking is what really saved him from, living a life on the street and potentially getting caught up in other things that were negative. So now he's, been this role model for kids who are at risk and creating these culinary programs. And I just thought that that was a great story and a great way to give back to the community. So we're giving Sammy Power Move today.
Wow.
That's really an inspiring story, and especially anything that involves food.
Right.
But hearing his background, it even makes that more impressive. So hats off.
Yeah, I mean, nobody has a perfect childhood, and we all use that as an excuse for being jerks as adults. But I mean,
I haven't stopped using it yet, so
My excuse for life.
Yeah, but to come from
it
a-
was my mother.
but to come from a background like that and make something out of yourself is almost unbelievable. I mean, kudos to him. Like, what force of will and character, right?
Mhm. And to use that background to help other people, not have
Yeah.
to experience that. So that's wonderful what he's doing.
And that's the key, helping other people. And
Mhm.
speaking of that, we're on to Fireside. Elizabeth.
Yes. So for those of you who don't know, Fireside is a video directory of small businesses. And I have a whole system with it. I've been talking about having to add things to my patent application. So I did a provisional patent in last September. So I have till this September to file my utility patent
She
and
got
make
the
any
patent
changes.
for free, by the way.
I drafted it myself.
Well,
So-
that's still free.
anyway, but now I'm having a little bit of a problem because my trademark for Fireside Directory is in suspension at the USPTO, United States Patent and Trademark Office, which means they're not saying, yes, you can have it. No, you can't have it. They're saying, oh, we just have to wait and see what a few other people do. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to use the name Fireside Directory or Fireside or not for this. So this past weekend, 4th of July weekend, we're sitting around not doing much. So I started trying to think of new names. So I came up with a couple, and
But you're not going to tell anybody, are you?
well, I'm going to tell Kenya because Kenya
Well,
is like
you
our
can tell Kenya, but I don't say it on the radio.
No, I'm not going to. Kenya is like a creative genius. And I know if somebody can help me come up with a new name, it will be
Oh,
Kenya.
I couldn't agree more. She's told me, ha ha ha, I know
Yes.
things that you don't know.
So, but that's why doing the trademark search, and it was free when we did the trademark search. I mean, the name was open, but the trademark office just got really picky with it. I don't know if other people started using it after me or how much of a fight there is for this, but at this point, I haven't done a lot of branding around it because I didn't have the trademark yet. So I can change the name without really hurting myself.
Yeah, and I think that's a smart strategy to consider.
If I
Mm-hmm.
have to, I will. I like Fireside a lot, but may not.
Someone actually did try using it after you. They're a pretty famous person, but we won't talk about that.
I know. And that was after me, but I don't know. So, but the trademark office might like them more because they have more money than I do. So I don't know.
That's not how they make decisions.
Well, they're putting me on
They're
hold for
supposed to
some
be
reason.
impartial. It has
Yeah,
nothing to
right.
do. And if it's a big fish, we'll take them on. We'll take on
Well,
anyone.
Like, so the fact that somebody was able to trademark the word the because they had a lot of clout. I mean, come on. I couldn't get a trademark on the word the. Anyway, I'm just, you know what? I'm
You
prepared
just
for
say-
any
You have to
eventuality.
use the right attorney. That's all I can
Yes,
say.
I'm prepared for any eventuality. So we'll see what happens. But I wouldn't necessarily want to be competing with the big guy anyway. But if I could claim my trademark, I'd want to sell it to him. So he could
That's
license it
that's our
from me.
retirement plan.
Yeah. So anyway, enough about that. Now we are on to our next presenter, and this is really cool. I don't know about the rest of you. I love getting a massage, and Brittany Driscoll makes it so easy with Squeeze Massage. Welcome, Brittany. Tell us all about it.
Thank you so much for having me. So Squeeze is a new massage concept from the founders of Dry Bar. I actually worked for Dry Bar for about 4 years from 2013 to 2017. If you don't know what Dry Bar is, it's a blowout bar. Women go to get their hair washed and styled. There's over 150 locations across the country now. And you know, the entire experience is really about creating disruption and making people feel good. And so we all loved getting massages and felt like there was a massive opportunity to disrupt that industry as well. So this is really my first true entrepreneurial venture. Really, the way that we view the landscape of the massage industry was on one end of the spectrum, you've got low-end discount chains that have made massage accessible to the masses, but lack a lot from a consumer experience standpoint. And then on the flip side, you have high-end hotels and spas, which are lovely, but unattainable for a regular experience. So we really brought in the sophisticated luxury brand and feel of the higher end experience at an affordable price point. And our biggest differentiation, aside from a great brand and a more modern feel to the experience, is our technology. We've built out an app that enables our guests to do everything from book an appointment, set all their personalized preferences, through to paying, rating, tipping, and reviewing. So we like to say our guests walk in and flow out. It's a very relaxing experience. And we've also added a lot of other components to the experience that exists today in many of the chains that you probably know the names of, just to try and make it a little bit better. So things like, we have a dedicated guest area in our rooms where you can hang a jacket. We have mints and hair ties. We have phone chargers built in. We have a ready button on the table, so you as the guest let the therapist know when you're ready for them to re-enter. So there's just a lot of components to our experience that we've really tried to create and make people feel really good. So the way that we are scaling this business, we opened our flagship location in March of 2019. And I always like to say we were open for 11 months before the world had different plans for us. We got a rude awakening there for a year or two. We were in Los Angeles. So of course the restrictions there were quite conservative, but in any case, we're planning on scaling nationally. We've sold over 30 locations to date. So looking to partner with amazing entrepreneurial spirits, people out there who are passionate about the health and wellness industry, who know how to lead teams, who really want to create a great experience in their community.
That's great. I mean, it's a lot of work to put together a franchise, and maybe you could talk a little bit about that process, because a lot of entrepreneurs find the franchising process very appealing because you're sort of buying a ready-made business, right? You just have to apply the elbow grease. How did you go about putting together your franchise?
Right. So we like to talk about a franchise as a business in a box. You get to come in, you still get to be your own boss, you're hiring your own team, you are the representative of the brand in your community, but you basically have a paint by number, step-by-step guide to be able to support you through the entire process, which was really exciting for me because, as I mentioned, this is my first true entrepreneurial venture. And I always like to say that it's overwhelming and exhausting, but mostly it's liberating. And so I really loved the idea of creating this same experience that I had for myself, for other people in their community. And then not to mention, of course, massage being such a feel-good experience. There's just it's a wonderful space to work in and to be a part of every day. But the way that we went about building our system, we actually designed Squeeze specifically with, we call our franchisees operating partner number 489 in mind. We have the intention of growing this to hundreds of units, and we really challenged ourselves to think about their success and how they would be able to replicate what we were doing. And if we didn't feel that it was going to be easy enough, we really challenged ourselves to do it differently. And really what franchising looks like on the franchisor side in supporting our franchisees is just tons of documentation around every operational protocol, support systems and processes for all of the functional areas. So for us, that's real estate, that's project management and construction, that is hiring, training, onboarding your team, that is marketing in your community. And so we essentially have playbooks upon playbooks for each of those functional areas to ensure that our operating partners are supported. And then, there's also several things that we do on the back end to offset some of their responsibilities so that they can really focus on just creating a great experience for the guest.
Well, I gotta say, Brittany, your innovation is amazing. I mean, the call button, it's like, duh, like, why is that not at a doctor's office?
That, by
everywhere.
The way.
I mean,
if you can trademark the word "duh," you should patent.
but
there you go. That's a good takeaway.
But it sounds like you're truly customer focused more than a lot of these other places are. Like the call button thing to me just says innovation and true customer focus, which I think is going to set you apart from everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, it really is true. You're lying there, and you're just waiting. And when is this massage person going to come in? Are they on the phone? What's going on? And if you just have a button to push, I think that would make it much better. So
Exactly. And as you can imagine too, it's actually very beneficial for our therapists. They've had many awkward moments throughout their career. So they're actually equally grateful to have the ready button. Yeah. And it's funny, when we were at Tribar, we always used to say that we didn't invent blowouts. We certainly didn't invent massage. There's nothing different about the actual massage experience, but we really did challenge ourselves to go about and look at every aspect of the experience and how we could make it more enjoyable and more relaxing. There's a few other components to our business that I think makes it special. One is we do place a ton of emphasis on the customer experience, and that is, demonstrated through all of the features that I just mentioned. But massage is a very ingrained behavior in Americans' lives now. And so the demand is not endless, but certainly there's a lot of opportunity to play within the space. But really where I felt like the opportunity was on the business side was the people, our employees. I really I'm passionate about people. I like to say at the end of the day, all we're doing is selling people's time. We're in the people industry, not the service industry. So we place a lot of emphasis around our team culture and prioritizing our people's personal development and just who they are as holistically from a human being standpoint. I always challenge our team. I want our team to feel valued first and foremost for who they are as individuals, and then for their contribution to the company. So we place a lot of emphasis around that, and that's what we talk the most about with our operating partners, the candidates who want to franchise. Is you've got to be really passionate about leading people and caring deeply about creating a strong sense of community. That, and we also have a philanthropic component. So we've partnered with an organization called Canine Companions. And for every membership that we sell, we're helping to provide a day of canine support to a person with a disability. They're the largest provider of service dogs to adult children and veterans in the country, free of charge. So in any case, that really is something that we promote both publicly to our guests. Our team knows about it. So, everyone kind of feels like they're not only a part of a feel-good experience, but they're also doing good beyond the four walls. So
that's
yeah,
excellent.
it's a pretty,
I just want to, it is, that's excellent. I want to give Jason time for a question. Jason, do you have a question or comment?
No, I love your point on it's about the people and about the culture internally. So that I think any person who realizes that early in their entrepreneurial career is going to go very, very far. That the customers are important, but your employees are by far the most important because they're the ones who take care of your customer. So I love what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
Thank
Kenya.
you.
Yeah. Kenya, do you have a comment or question?
Yeah, I mean, I think people always they associate obviously getting a massage with relaxation, and that's all great. But sometimes we don't really realize a lot of the health benefits that come through massage therapy. Can you talk a little bit about that for folks who are not as familiar?
Absolutely. I mean, the benefits of massage are really endless. It reduces inflammation, helps with your sleep, reduces stress, relieves muscle tension. And also there is just a component of human touch, right? I mean, we all need it as human beings, and massage can truly be an overwhelmingly therapeutic experience, mind, body, and soul, just through the experience of human touch. And so I always like to say that our therapists are helpers and healers. They really are these beautiful people who are able to really make a massive impact in people's lives beyond just the physical. So there really is, a direct link to your mental health as well, for massage and mobility, flexibility. Again, it really is endless. If you are out there and you don't get regular massages, you should be getting one at least once a month. I try to go at least once a week. It really is game changing. For every aspect of your physical and mental health.
But so if somebody has a partner and they give each other massages, what's kind of the difference between that and
a real
I'm not talking about what happens afterwards. I just like the massage part itself.
All of our therapists are licensed. So, they have hundreds of hours of experience really understanding the anatomy and everything that is required to relieve that tension and really help with all of those benefits that I was just mentioning. So while it's certainly nice to maybe get a back rub at home every now and then, there really is no equivalent to coming into a place like Squeeze, where you have licensed professionals who really understand the body and can help you getting back to feeling like, the best version of yourself.
You are absolutely right. Full disclosure here. I'm going to let our little secret go. Richard and I get massages once a week. Now, we were lucky enough to find 2 young women who come into the house and do it in our basement in the workout room. And I'm addicted. Like, I've come to depend on that because it releases so much tension and just stuff from your body. It's amazing.
And it's been great for our marriage. Whenever she starts to get a little agitated, I said, well, let's talk about this after the massage.
There you go. There you go. Well, I also find what's great about massages, it's kind of one of the only things that I'm not looking at my phone. You really have to put your phone down and you completely unplug and disconnect. So I also think in that sense of the world we all live in today, it really is an escape and a chance to unplug at least for a little bit if you can.
Yeah. And I think somebody that really knows the body, like knows the pressure points and knows like the chakra points. And I think they know a lot of that stuff that you don't normally think about, because I can tell that my masseuse is doing that for me. She's
Absolutely.
like going through my chakras. She's finding, like, she can tell where I'm holding my stress. And she sometimes it hurts a little bit, but it's supposed to, because you've no pain, no gain, but to release that, sometimes you have to dig in, right?
Correct. And yeah, again, their education is light years beyond any of our kind of layman knowledge, if you will. One of the things that I've come to learn is a lot of time neck and upper back pain actually has more to do with our chest than it does our actual back. So it's like you're thinking, please work on my back, but it's more so just needing to kind of relieve tension in the front of your body. So there's all sorts of, nuggets of knowledge that they have to really help relieve pain and stress.
Yeah, so they really have a knowledge and a profession, and where they can pull all of these things together and really help you be your best you, as you said.
And I'm glad to hear that you really vet the people working for you, because I did go to one of those big places that give you like certificates and you come every so often and everything. And I got this really young person who was still in school, and I'd hurt my ankle, and this person made it like 10 times worse. I said, don't touch my ankle, decided they were going to work on it. And so I never went back, but I really did not get the level of massage that I'm getting now from somebody who's really vetted, right?
Absolutely. Yes. Our, again, all of our therapists are licensed, and we have a pretty stringent onboarding and interview process just to ensure that we really are getting the best of the best. We're wanting to make this a very iconic brand and, a well-known name. We're obviously just getting started, but yes, quality and customer service and care is of the utmost importance to us.
Well, that's great, Brittany. So unfortunately, we have to move on to our next presenter.
Okay. Yeah. So why don't you tell us how people can find you?
Sure. Squeezemassage.com is our website. If you're interested in franchising, you can just add a /franchising to that. And then also on Instagram, we are just at Squeeze.
Okay. Excellent. Well, thank you very much. Very, very good service you're providing to the world. Reducing stress.
Better world through massage.
Yes. So now we're on to Becca Gardner with Naked Lady. I know you've all been waiting to hear what this Naked Lady is. It's spelled NKD LDY. And please, Becca, tell us all about it.
Naked Lady is a line of non-alcoholic distilled spirits made from real spirits. So basically what we do is we source spirits from our partners, and we use this process called vacuum distillation to remove the ethanol. So we offer folks a gin, a tequila, and a whiskey that they can use interchangeably with the, quote unquote, real spirit. And we're really trying to give folks more options. I'd say that about 80% of our customers are actually drinkers that just want the ability to incorporate a little bit more moderation into their drinking habits. And yeah, I got started on this about 2.5 years ago, and I'm hearing a lot of familiar stories just in terms of, the impact of the pandemic and supply chains. So it's been an interesting ride, and we did our first bottling run at the beginning of March this year. I think I'd actually just met Brittany at another conference. And But yeah, and now we're trying to learn more about our customer. I mean, it's fascinating because I'm a non-drinker. So this came from a place of, personal inspiration, but it's amazing how many folks out there are interested in this product for reasons I hadn't even considered. Whether it's that someone's premenopausal, or maybe there's a certain medication that they're on, or maybe it's about job performance. I've met some different folks that actually just are wanting to cut back so that they can be more effective in what they're working on. But it's a really exciting phase. It's a crazy phase. It truly feels like there's 1,000 things happening simultaneously, but very excited about this.
Well, congratulations. I mean, how did you come up with the chemistry to make this work? I mean, that sounds like it would be a real challenge.
Yes. Yeah, it absolutely was. And it was a process, honestly, because I had never started a company and I never had worked in the beverage industry. And I'm a strategy consultant by background. I've been working in that industry for about 10 years. And so I honestly just started asking everyone I knew if they knew a scientist. And then I found out that I needed to be much more specific than that. And it became looking for a chemical engineer. And then it became, it was this long trail of trying to get to the right person who could actually, I think, wrap their mind around the concept that I was trying to develop, because it wasn't someone from the traditional spirits industry. It wasn't created like a typical non-alcoholic product. And so it really took finding someone who had an understanding of both of those spaces, who could help me innovate something that kind of sat in between. And it has, it's been a wild ride. I've worked with a lot of different formulators and scientists, but I'm really excited because we actually, I think, have nailed the flavor profile. There are a lot of new products that are emerging in this space now, but I think because of our process of using real spirits, we actually are able to offer folks the same cocktails they know and love without the alcohol.
That's awesome.
That's incredible.
So, Jason, do you have a question or comment?
Most certainly.
We might need to have a session together. I don't have makeup on because of manufacturing problems.
So I'm actually going to jump into, how has your reception been in the beverage industry? I know beverage industry can be a bit cliquey. So just how has that embrace been?
Oh man, I'm out of the bright-eyed and bushy-tailed phase. I'll say that, because I think, I spent so much time just incubating this in my own mind during the pandemic, and I'm sober. So for me, I knew every single detail about the category. I'd made 1,000 decks about it, and I was sure I knew my customer perfectly. I was sure the industry was just going to love me. Most of those things aren't how things turned out. I have noticed, though, over the course of the pandemic, what started as a lot of skepticism and even just kind of eye rolling. I moved back to Kentucky from New York to work on this, where I'm from. And, when you tell folks in the bourbon industry that you're removing the alcohol from a spirit, I can tell you that they think you're absolutely insane. But because the pandemic actually really impacted, I think, consumption around alcohol, people started drinking a lot more. On the other side of that, people started wondering what it would look like to cut back. So I think because this category has been growing in the last year, a lot of the traditional players are actually turning their sights to businesses like my own and wanting to get involved even earlier than they might have with other companies.
So that's really great. So Kenya, do you have a question or comment?
I do. I wanted to talk about the name a little bit because I was afraid to Google it on like my work computer. I'm like, I don't know what they're gonna say. So I just kind of want to talk about the inspiration, like kind of where the concept for the name came from and the brand.
Yeah. So I wanted to name this brand after a muse, because there are so many spirits companies, especially bourbon companies, whiskey companies, that are named after either the men who founded them or inspired them. And when I couldn't think of a specific woman, I wanted it to be something more generic. So I used lady, which is the Southern ubiquitous term kind of for a woman. Mm-hmm. And I used naked just to describe, I think, my own experience of sobriety, kind of feeling like I am deciding to step into these spaces undisguised And honestly, it was utterly terrifying, I think, for my first couple years of getting my training wheels on. And I didn't want other people to have that experience of living a more naked life, but it'd rather be a celebration.
Well, it's certainly an attention-getting name, right? So
yeah,
I'm making your cocktail with a naked lady, so hang on.
Yeah, and I mean, talk about like pie in the sky dream. I really think that there's a lot of opportunity to impact the way that we even talk about these types of products. So, mocktail or virgin, a lot of these are emotionally dissuasive. And so my dream would be that we could just use the word naked instead, so that you could have your favorite cocktail, whether it was a Manhattan or a Negroni, and just have it naked. So it'd be easy and not really bring that much attention to yourself if it wasn't something you were looking for.
Yeah, that sounds more like a party word.
Well, but
I'd be edgy,
Yeah.
But it's like you say, on ice or with a lemon, or it people could order drinks naked, meaning without the alcohol, so that it does have a humor to it, but it also could be part of the bar slang, I guess, for lack of a better word.
Yeah,
exactly.
So where are you selling this now?
So you can purchase our products on our website at Drink Naked Lady. So that's drink spelled normally, then NKD LDY.com. We are available at quite a few different bars, restaurants, retail outlets in Louisville, Kentucky. And in the next month, we will be solidifying some deals where we'll have much broader distribution. So hopefully people on the West Coast and Ohio area will be able to buy our product too at retail stores.
Is there an age limit for the beverage?
So they actually require ID to purchase this product if you're going to a spirit store, but it is FDA regulated. So it's non-alcoholic. So you can, I suppose you can purchase it online, but we do encourage folks to still use this responsibly. So.
Right. Drink it naked responsibly is what she wants us to do.
Yeah, I had this one experience recently where we were at an event and somebody was asking if I could make their toddler a cocktail. And it was the first time that I was kind of confronted with this idea of, it doesn't have any alcohol, but it's still kind of weird to give a toddler tequila. So, yeah.
Well, I can see how this could be really useful for bars. Like if somebody's had 4 old fashions and they want 3 more, just give them this. Right?
Yeah. And I think that's our hope, is that we really are able to show bartenders how this can be a useful tool for them to maintain, a safer environment, but also to keep making money when people might have otherwise gone home or not come out altogether. So,
well, how do the flavor profiles compare to, the real thing? Is it indistinguishable for the most part, or?
So it's not indistinguishable, but it's a little weird, actually. I think it's a little trippy, I'll say, for folks when they try it, because it tastes like the tequila, the gin, the whiskey that you would expect, but it doesn't have the ethanol burn. So if you're trying it neat, it's all of the flavor without that sharpness. But then when you put it in a cocktail, it's really interchangeable. So it's important to enjoy it in cocktails. We're not at the place where, we've been able to master an ethanol burn, but we also don't want to pump these products with too many unnecessary chemicals.
That's great. Well, it's a fascinating idea, and I see it as a step forward because, just to be perfectly candid, I like the taste of wine, but I also have to make sure that I don't drink too much of it. And this seems like a perfect solution for cocktail drinkers. Maybe alternate between, or water it down or something like that, and you can still get some of the benefits of alcohol, but you don't have, it's not as hard. So it really does sound like a great innovation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
So we have to move on to a commercial break.
So, listeners, that was Becca Gardner with drinknakedlady.com, or Drink Naked Lady, and it's drinknkdldy.com. So if you want to cut back on your drinking but not lose any of the pleasure, this is what you need to have for that. And
we didn't ask about the calories.
Oh, well, who cares?
5
about them?
calories, 5 calories a serving.
Oh,
So
wow. There
Oh,
you
wow.
go.
Now you've got my attention.
So the next time you see a skinny person walking around with a margarita, they're really drinking this. So, listeners, we will be right back. Don't go away yet. We still have the question of the day to wrap up with, get a little bit of knowledge of our panel's personalities. And you are listening to Passage to Profit, Road to Entrepreneurship with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart. And our special guest today, Jason Azevedo. We'll be right back.
Welcome back, everybody. Completely enjoyed the show because I got to use the word naked several times. But before we go on, it's time for our fun question. So, Elizabeth, what is the fun question of the week?
What is your favorite color and why? And let's start with Jason.
My favorite color is green. If something's green, it means it's growing. And
Aw.
I live out in the country. When you start seeing that green come up, you know that there's a new summer coming. So it's always been my favorite, always will be.
Wow,
Aw,
that's
really
that's really nice. I like green, but for other more cynical reasons.
Color of money.
If that's growing, you're happy too.
What about you, Brittany?
I'm going to say squeeze blue. Actually, we have a very specific color. Blue inherently evokes relaxation and calm, but it's also a fresh, fun color, and I think really special. And I'm hoping it kind of catches on as we grow across the country. So
Great.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And Becca.
I was always one of those kids that said I liked all the colors, but I think today I'll say blue. It's also the color I've been most attracted to, and I'm from the bluegrass state. So
There you go. Okay, Kenya.
It's a tie between emerald green and red. I feel like those are always my two go-to colors. I think emerald because it's like just a feel good color, like in its green, and it does something to your brain, I feel like. And then red, I love everything that's red. I don't really have a reason.
I know when we did our last shoot, you came in a red dress, right? So
yeah, So I just think it's
very powerful, passionate color.
It is, and I like it. I like it.
Yeah. What about you?
No, you go next.
I'm gonna go next. I'm gonna say like Caribbean green. Like when you look out at that's not a real color. It's sort of a location color. But you didn't say it couldn't be a location
No,
color.
I did not.
It's just like you look out at the ocean and you see that green turning into blue. That's kind of like my favorite color scenario.
Well, I have two. So I always.
Wait, I didn't ask you. What is your favorite color?
I have two. So I've always loved red. I don't know why. I love, like Kenya. I just love red, but I love blue, and my logo is blue, and blue outfits look good on me. So red and blue, I love them both. I can't choose.
Really?
Yeah.
So if like you were talking to the Undertaker for your last, you're getting ready for your funeral, what color dress would you be buried in?
Well, I would probably be buried, but honestly, I would be buried in a dress that had flowers of all colors on it.
Okay.
So
all right.
there.
That's good. That's a little bit of a morbid question,
So
but
now
anyway.
Well, I want to be buried in a red lip. I've already made that very clear.
What's a red lip?
A red lipstick.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
And lashes. Those are my requirements.
You want to, when it's times to go to heaven, you want to look right.
I gotta
look good.
Well, so now we're to the point where I'm going to run through everybody's websites once again. If anybody's just tuning in, our podcast is out tomorrow. This was a really great show because we learned about bringing manufacturing back to the US, which is so important, but also two incredible new companies. So our first person was Jason Azevedo. He is the founder of Manufacturing Revitalization Corporation of America, which is a mouthful, but you can find it at MRCA.net. And what he helps you do is manufacture your product in the United States for less or the same as if you went overseas to these countries that have a reputation for being lower price. They're not anymore.
Get it made in the USA.
He's found a way to make it affordable in the US. I think that's super important. And you can go to his website and find him and reach out to him if you have something that you want to talk to him about. And then we had Brittany Driscoll with Squeeze Massage, SQUEEZE massage.com.
Just talking about this makes me want a massage.
I know. We just had one last night, but she's taken the massage process one step further and really added new innovations to it that I think are really an improvement. So, and also she's selling franchises. So if you want your own company, definitely look her up at squeezemassage.com.
And if you go into one of her massager places, you get to push a button when you're ready.
Okay. And then thank you for that contribution. And then we had Becca Gardner with Naked Lady, drink NKD LDY.com. Very innovative. It's naked drinks. Basically, you can make drinks from a base that is like alcohol, but it is not alcoholic, but it's made from the alcoholic base. So it tastes very similar. And when you put it in a drink like a Manhattan, you think you're drinking a real Manhattan.
So at our next cocktail party, we should serve this instead of real booze and see if people get drunk anyway.
You'd be surprised. Seriously.
So anyway, we do have some time for some final comments. So Jason, any parting words for our audience before we depart?
Yeah. So through the three of us talking today and for the wider group, I want to kind of hit home that every one of these businesses was started in a rough time with the pandemic, with supply chain issues, and look how cool and how awesome people pulled it off with, whether it be Naked Lady or Squeeze. You guys are building these great companies from a time of turmoil. I really want people to pay attention to that. And the world is not nearly as bad as people are trying to convince us it is right now. It's just it's changing, and it's a great time to grow.
Absolutely. That's I love that spirit. Kenya?
Yeah, I really just appreciate the fact that we added manufacturing to the conversation today, because this is what this country was built on, right? There's a lot of great titans that have come out of America. And just back to Jason's point about like building something during a tough time, I just think that just goes back to the resiliency of this country, right? It was built in tough times. We always survive tough times. And I think like it's birthed a lot of great entrepreneurs. So that's my little patriotic speech for today. And I loved learning about, all the different businesses today. I mean, I love what Brittany's doing, in the massage and the wellness space, and what you're doing for other people in that space to be able to have ownership is super important. And I love how creative Becca has been with her brand and just giving alternate options to folks who are trying to transition out of drinking, but also want to have a great tasting beverage. So super innovative conversation today. Loved it.
Well, that is very profound. Thank you, Kenya, the media maven. We appreciate it. Unfortunately, now our time has come to an end and we need to sign off, but we will be back with another Passage to Profit next week at this station. So, but before we go, I'd like to thank our Passage to Profit team, Noah Fleischman, who is our producer, Alicia Morrissey, who is our program coordinator, and Mark Wilson, who is our
syndication expert,
who is our syndication manager. Yes. Our podcast can be found anywhere you find your podcast. So just look for the Passage to Profit show. And don't forget to like us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And remember, while the information provided in this program is believed to be correct, never take a legal step without first contacting your legal professional. Thanks a lot. And we'll be back next week.